Many young boys in America, like myself, dreamed or have dreamed of being in the NFL one day. My name is Ethan Schultz, and I think it is very surprising that many of these kids don't know about CTE. In my area, most, if not all kids, have played football. I think it is important to know about the consequences of playing football and the head injuries that come with it. I myself have had experience with head injuries. In 6th grade, I did get a concussion. I personally don't think it has affected my memory or my mood at all, but that's what people with CTE would probably say also. In my speech, I will be talking about the effects of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or better known as CTE. My main points in my article, or in my speech, are the diagnosis and discovery of CTE, how does CTE affect the brain, what are the consequences of CTE, and what have some people done because of CTE. My first main point is the diagnosis and discovery of CTE. The first scientist to discover CTE was Dr. Bennett Amalu. He was a doctor for the Allegheny County's office in Pittsburgh, PA. In a 2017 article titled, Dr. Bennett Amalu, Spotlight and Profoundly in Covenant Truth, the University of Washington Public Health, which is the only public health school in the Northwest, says, but when he looked inside Webster's skull, there was no sign of injury. Yet, somewhere in the core of his being, he knew Mike Webster was, in fact, a victim of the game. Dr. Amal discovered CTE in 2002. Like I said before, Mike Webster was the first person to get diagnosed with CTE. Mike Webster was a center for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Kansas City Chiefs throughout 1974 to 1990. In Mike Webster, Dr. Amal said he discovered something he'd never seen before, a buildup of tau proteins. These affect the nerves and these affect brain cells that affect nerves and in your aggression and your memory. My second main point is how does CTE affect the brain? During a blow to the head, people think that it's just on the outside. But in your head, you obviously have your skull and your brain. And protecting your brain from hitting your skull is this jelly-like substance that goes around your brain. And when you hit your head too hard, your brain protrudes through this jelly-like substance and smacks right on your skull. Football is trying to find a way to take these hard hits out of the game. They have invented better helmets. Nowadays, the helmets are designed so they take the impact instead of your head. Back in the late 1970s, when football was most violent as it's ever been, the helmets were just plastic around the dude's head, and all the impact was just on his head. CTE affects the brain through its brain cells, and then those brain cells control the nerves of your body. In a 2020 news article titled CTE Contact Sport Play Link to REM Sleep Behavior Disorder, Gina DeGravo and Kat J. McPauline, who work for Boston University, say that most patients with REM sleep behaviors have Lewy bodies, abnormal aggression of protein that develops inside nerve cells. These Lewy bodies develop into Parkinson's, dementia, and many other disorders. With these sleep disorders, the REM cycle sleep that is caused by CTE, in bed, the person may injure themselves because they're jumping around in bed and they don't realize it, or they may injure their partners. My third and final main point is, what are the consequences of CTE and what have some people done because of it? There's been many traumatic deaths caused, in fact, by CTE. They didn't know that at the time, but after an autopsy, they learned that these deaths and traumatic incidents were caused by CTE. In a 2017 news article titled Ex-Wife of Late Justin scurrilously irked by players' comments. Ben Schmidt, who was a writer for the Pitt Tribune, says that he died September 30th, 2004, after, in a police chase, his pickup collided with the trailer truck. And in this quote, it doesn't tell you, but this ex-Steelers player had severe CTE, and he snapped and got into a police chase and went into head-on traffic and collided with a tanker truck. The police do not think, in the police report, the police did not think that it was because of drug or alcohol use, just that he just snapped. Another example of CTE traumatic deaths were Dave Gurson, an ex-Bears player who killed himself. Another one, ex-Philadelphia Eagles player, Andre Waters, who also killed himself. With later autopsies, we learned that these were both that both these players had CTE. Families have also been affected like this. Obviously, with any death, families have been affected. But there's one story of an ex-Jets player who actually got the game securing interception for Joe Namath and the Jets. He was watching golf, and after playing golf his whole life, he had a golf ball in his hand, and he didn't know what it was. And this took a huge toll on him. Another story about a man picking up his daughter from school, went to the wrong school. CTE is very similar to Alzheimer's. I think that people have to take care of someone with CTE like Alzheimer's, but CTE is just much more aggressive. In my speech, I talked about the initial discovery of CTE, how it affects the brain, and what are the consequences of CTE. In my speech tonight was to inform my wonderful audience about the effects of CTE, and so the next time you're watching your favorite NFL team, just know that 98% of players that have ever played in the NFL have in fact had CTE. Thank you for watching.